Hello and welcome to our latest dark history and hauntings video. Today, we're taking a look at Bodmin Jail, the one-time home to some of Britain's most notorious criminals. Located in the heart of Cornwall, this prison has been around since 1779, and it is now said to be home to several ghosts, some of which have pretty dark backstories. So a bit of a content warning, this video contains details that some viewers may find disturbing or upsetting. Back in the day, Bodmin Jail was the place to be if you were a highwayman, murderer, or any other sort of lawbreaker. It was like a VIP club, but with less dancing and more leg irons. Nowadays, Bodmin Jail is a unique hotel that attracts visitors from all over the world. And who can blame them? Where else can you spend the night in a former prison cell, complete with authentic Victorian decor and a complimentary ghost? Bodmin Jail is said to be haunted by the spirits of former inmates and staff members. So, if you hear any strange noises in the middle of the night, don't worry, it's just one of your ghostly cellmates saying hi. But before we jump right to the ghosts that haunt this jail, let me give you a little backstory on this prison. Did you know that Bodmin Jail played a key role in some of the most significant events in British history? During World War II, it was used as a temporary detention centre for American and British soldiers who had gone absent without leave. It was like the jail version of a timeout. And in the mid-19th century, Bodmin Jail even had its own resident hangman, William Calcraft. He was like the Simon Cowell of the execution world, but with a much higher body count. So, whether you're a history buff, a ghost enthusiast, or just looking for a unique place to stay, Bodmin Jail has something for everyone. Join us on this journey through time and discover the fascinating stories that make this place so special. So the first ghost that is said to haunt this spooky jail is Selena Wadge. Now, Selena wasn't exactly living her best life during the Victorian era. She was a 28-year-old single mom of two boys born out of wedlock, and let's just say she wasn't exactly rolling in dough. In fact, she had to resort to asking for a spot at the Launceston workhouse, which was like the last resort hotel but with way more shame attached to it. Let's turn to Selena's family, including her sons Henry and John, who were aged 2 and 6. Henry was affectionately known as Harry, and had difficulty walking due to a physical impairment. Despite these challenges, both boys appeared to be well cared for. In the summer of 1878, Selena took a break from the workhouse telling people she was going to visit her mother in the village of Altenham, which was located about 8 miles west of Launceston in Cornwall. She brought her sons along with her for the visit. Selena also claimed to be in a relationship with a former soldier named James Westwood, although it is not believed that he was the boy's father. Anyway, according to James Westwood, he had only met Selena twice before, in December 1877 and March 1878. He had written her a letter saying that they could meet in Launceston on June 22, but then sent another letter telling her that he wouldn't be able to make it because of work. But on June 21, 1878, Selena and her boys decided to hit the road and hitch a ride towards Launceston with a local farmer named William Holman. Maybe she just wanted to get away from the workhouse for a little bit. Or was she hatching a cunning plan? Who knows? Anyway, she told Mr. Holman that she was heading to town to meet her boyfriend before returning to the workhouse that evening. Later that Saturday morning, Selena was spotted near Mowbray Park, and by midday, she had made her way back to the workhouse, but this time, only one of her sons, John, was with her. When questioned by her sister, who was also an inmate at the workhouse, in front of the workhouse master, Mr. Downing, Selena claimed that Harry had died in Altenham. But they all thought that story sounded a bit fishy. And then later on that night, young John had a different tale to tell the workhouse nurses. According to him, Selena had put Harry in a pit all by herself. This was very alarming for the staff at the workhouse. So on the Sunday morning, Mr. Downing, the workhouse master, and his wife, who was the matron, sat down with Selena to discuss what had happened. According to Selena, her boyfriend had taken Harry from her and drowned him in a well on Friday evening, and had even threatened to harm both her and her other son John. Well, as you can imagine, Mr. Downing wasn't about to take this news lying down. He quickly called the police, who sent Superintendent Barrett from Launceston to investigate the matter. Under caution, Selena repeated her story to the superintendent, and not only did she implicate James Westwood in Harry's disappearance, she outright told them she had witnessed Westwood kill her son. Barrett launched a search for young Harry, and found his body in 3 feet of water at the bottom of a 13-foot deep well shaft in Mowbray Park. The top of the well was covered, so it would not have been possible for Harry to have accidentally fallen in of his own accord. Plus, Harry had a hard time walking, so it was out of the question. When Harry's body was recovered, it showed no signs of violence. Selina was not in custody at this point, but remained in the care of Mrs. Downey at the workhouse, to whom she then confessed that she alone had committed the murder of Harry, and that only her son John had been present. After they found little Harry's body, Superintendent Barrett had sufficient grounds to arrest and charge Selina and take her to Launceston Police Station. She told one of the constables that James Westwood had persuaded her to kill Harry, on the promise that he would marry her if she did. The case went to trial at Bodmin before Mr. Justice Denman on Monday the 27th of July 1878, and the prosecution outlined the story above. The workhouse staff were called as witnesses to the confession. James Westwood's letters were also read out for all to hear. James Westwood also assured the court that he had no ill feeling toward the children. Evidence of Selina's previous good character and affection for her children was given by some of the other inmates at the workhouse and by people from her home village. The courtroom was fraught with tension as the jury retired to deliberate the fate of Selina, accused of a heinous crime. And yet, their verdict was swift, a mere 45 minutes of deliberation resulting in a guilty verdict. However, the jury's decision was not without nuance. They recommended mercy for Selina, acknowledging her past dedication to caring for her children and asserting that the murder was not premeditated. But even with the jury's recommendation, Selina's fate was far from certain. Mr. Justice Denman delivered a chilling sentence, warning her that she could not rely on the jury's leniency. With a heavy heart, he sentenced her to death, and Selina was promptly escorted back to Bodmin Jail and locked away in the condemned cell. As Selina sat in her cell, awaiting her fate, an unexpected letter arrived from James Westwood, begging for her forgiveness. When the contents of the letter were read aloud to Selina, her response was cryptic yet telling. Yes, she reportedly said, he needed forgiveness for many things. Meanwhile, the judge was preparing his report for the Home Office. Despite the jury's recommendation for mercy, the judge did not agree. When the report and case papers were examined by officials, the Home Secretary, Sir Richard Assheton Cross, was not moved to recommend a reprieve for Selina. But why? One possible reason was Selina's attempt to shift the blame onto John Westwood, who would have faced a hanging if convicted. It was a perilous time for women who committed infanticide, and unless the method of murder was poisoning, they were typically granted a reprieve. As Selina languished in her cramped cell, she was under constant watch by the ever-vigilant teams of matrons, tasked with preventing any attempts at suicide. But even with their watchful eyes, Selina's fate was sealed. The High Sheriff of Devon had made it clear that no representatives of the press would be admitted to her execution, adding to the aura of mystery and suspense. On the morning of her execution, Selina was a trembling mess, her terror palpable. What lay ahead was a new method of hanging, recently introduced by William Marwood. Selina was likely unaware of this new method, and the thought of choking on the end of a rope in front of a baying crowd was enough to send shivers down anyone's spine. But there was to be no spectacle, for Selina's execution was to be the first private one held at Bodmin. The gallows, a balcony pattern, had been erected over the archway, and as Selina was led out, her fate was sealed. William Marwood, the executioner, had calculated Selina's drop to be 8 feet. In the early morning hours, a somber procession began to form at the prison. The chaplain had been by her side since dawn, but soon the governor himself arrived to offer his final respects. As the bell tolled and the black flag was readied, the condemned woman emerged, flanked by 2 female warders and supported by the prison chaplain. The prison surgeon and Captain Colville followed close behind. As they made their way towards the gallows, the woman's tears were evident, but she bravely climbed the stairs to the platform without assistance. With a final prayer on her lips, she uttered her last words, "Lord, deliver me from this miserable world," before meeting her fate. As the lever was pulled and her body plummeted down, a handkerchief remained tightly clutched in her lifeless hand. The aftermath was quiet, as the black flag fluttered in the breeze and the bell continued to toll. A formal inquest was held, but the woman was ultimately laid to rest within the prison grounds. What is unclear is why Selina harbored the delusion that James Westwood would marry her if she disposed of her children whom she seemed to love and care for. His actions and statements do not seem to indicate that he was deeply in love with her. Whether she intended to kill John as well, or whether, when it came to it, she could not bring herself to, we will never know. Selena may have seen Westwood as a good catch, an ex-soldier with a job who was at least somewhat interested in her. Or was she innocent all along? It does beg the question of why Westwood sent Selena a letter saying sorry. Selena's ghost still lingers in the dark halls of Bodmin Prison, a place where she suffered and perished. Her restless spirit has been known to reach out to unsuspecting visitors, and those who have encountered her presence have been left shaken and disturbed. Mark Rablin, the renowned paranormal investigator at Bodmin, has heard countless stories of Selena's ghostly apparition. Children who have visited the prison have been known to ask who the lady in the long dress, crying inconsolably, was. Some pregnant women who have dared to venture onto the prison's 3rd and 4th floors have reported feeling a powerful emotional presence, leaving them shaken and vulnerable. But it is not just her cries and emotions that Selena's ghost manifests. Her spirit has been seen in full torso manifestation, a haunting reminder of the tragic end that she met within the prison's walls. The prison itself is shrouded in darkness and despair, but it is Selena's ghostly presence that gives the prison an even more sinister atmosphere. Her restless spirit seeks to make contact with those who dare to enter the prison, leaving behind a trail of fear and unease. For those who have witnessed Selena's ghost, the experience is one that they will never forget. Her chilling presence serves as a reminder of the terrible consequences that can arise from one's actions, and a warning that the past can never truly be forgotten. As long as Selena's ghost continues to haunt Bodmin Prison, visitors will continue to be entranced by the ghostly apparition of a tragic figure that still seeks to reach out from beyond the grave. Now on to the next ghost that is believed to haunt Bodmin Jail. Mathew Weeks, who was hanged on the 12th of August 1844 in front of a crowd of several thousand people outside Bodmin Jail. He was convicted of murdering his girlfriend Charlotte Dymond, whose murder is written into the folklore of Bodmin Moor. In the early 19th century, Charlotte Dymond was an 18-year-old domestic servant working on a farm on the edge of Bodmin Moor. She lived with 2 other live-in servants, John Stevens and Mathew Weeks, both aged in their early 20s. The farm was owned by an elderly widow and her son. At some point, Charlotte and Mathew had become boyfriend and girlfriend, despite their apparent differences. Charlotte was described as a pretty girl with a flirtatious nature, while Mathew was described as not at all good-looking, short, missing many teeth, and with a heavy limp. However, he had come into a modest inheritance, and Charlotte was illegitimate with no family, which may have been a reason for their unlikely pairing. But Charlotte had another suitor, Thomas Prout, the nephew of the farm's owner, who was a labourer and had worked with Mathew Weeks on occasion. Prout appeared to have intentions towards Charlotte, and it was rumoured that the two were planning to elope. So it seems Charlotte was keeping her options open. On the day of Charlotte's death, which was a Sunday, all the household members would have been wearing their Sunday best outfits. Charlotte wore a green striped dress and a red shawl. The last time she was seen alive was soon after she and Weeks had left the farm together, heading towards the moor. An elderly farmer spotted the couple through the fog and recognized Weeks from his pronounced limp. Later that evening, Weeks returned to the farm alone, although it appears that was not unusual. As the days went by and Charlotte still did not return, people began to notice things. Weeks's shirt was torn, and his trousers were muddied, although he claimed he had not been on the moor. In response to the growing suspicion, Weeks told the household that Charlotte had been offered a position in Blisland, some miles away, and had set off with the intention of staying at an acquaintance's house on the way. A week after Charlotte's disappearance, the household decided action was needed, and John Stevens and the farmer set off to check Weeks' story. It was found that no position had been offered in Blisland, and that Charlotte had not stayed at the acquaintance's house. On the same day, Mathew Weeks put on his Sunday best and left Penhale Farm with no intention to return. He was out of there. The following day, the farmer's wife took Weeks' clothes to be washed. It was then that she noticed the torn collar, missing buttons, and also some spots of blood on the shirt. The suspicion that Weeks had murdered Charlotte seemed beyond doubt at that point. On Tuesday, over a week after Charlotte had last been seen, a search party found her body on the banks of the River Allen, in the shadow of Rough Tor, Cornwall's second highest point. She had been killed by an extremely deep cut to her throat from ear to ear, probably caused by 2 cuts. With a body being found and the amount of circumstantial evidence linking Mathew Weeks to the murder, a warrant was issued for his arrest, but first, he needed to be found. He was eventually found in Plymouth, at his sister's house, apparently planning to flee to the Channel Islands. Upon searching Weeks' belongings, a pair of ladies' gloves and a blood-spotted lady's handkerchief were found. The murder of Charlotte Dymond had shocked the local community, and they demanded justice. In the 10 days Mathew Weeks spent in Bodmin Jail awaiting execution, 2 letters were attributed to him. Being illiterate, these were dictated. The first was to his family and the second a confession. It is this confession that has probably provided more weight to the argument of Weeks' innocence than anything else. Because it was written in a style far more eloquent than one would have expected from the mouth of an uneducated farm laborer, the letter said, "I hope young men will take a warning by me and not put too much confidence in young women, the same as I did, and I hope young females will take the same by young men. I loved that girl as dear as I loved my life, and after all the kind treatment I have showed her, and then she said she would have nothing more to do with me. And after this was done, then bitterly I did lament, thinking what would be my end. And I thank the judge and jury too, for they have given me no more than was my due." At 12 noon on the 12th of August 1844, Mathew Weeks was hung, in front of a crowd of several thousand, outside Bodmin Jail. His body was then buried in the prison's coal yard. Some people believe that Weeks was innocent, especially as the letters he apparently wrote seemed very suspicious. And Charlotte's other suitor, Prout, vanished until the inquest. Some people believe that Weeks was set up and that he died an innocent man. Despite being executed over 175 years ago, the spirit of Mathew Weeks is said to linger in the cells and corridors of Bodmin Jail to this day. Visitors to the jail have reported eerie experiences, such as sudden drops in temperature, unexplained noises, and doors opening and closing by themselves. Many of these reports describe encounters with a ghostly figure, believed to be the vengeful spirit of Weeks. According to some accounts, Weeks' ghostly apparition takes the form of a shadowy figure, hovering ominously in the darkness. Others claim to have seen a more detailed image of Weeks, dressed in his prison uniform and chains, with a look of desperation and anger on his face. Some believers in the haunting suggest that Weeks was wrongly convicted of the murder of Charlotte Dymond and that his ghost continues to haunt the jail seeking justice. They claim that Weeks' spirit is restless, unable to move on until his name is cleared. Others attribute Weeks' ghostly presence to the traumatic circumstances of his execution. The public display of his body in the iron gibbet would have been a gruesome and humiliating end for any human being. It is suggested that the horror of Weeks' execution has left a residual energy in the jail, giving rise to the unexplained phenomena that visitors continue to report. This next ghost will send shivers down your spine, or at least the crime that caused him to end up in Bodmin Jail will. The story of William Bartlett and his daughter is a tragic one that took place in the 18th century in England. William Bartlett was a farm labourer who lived in the village of Luxullion in Cornwall. In 1882, Bartlett had an illegitimate daughter, whose name is reported to be named Agnes. Bartlett had his daughter with a woman named Mary in Welsh. According to reports, Bartlett did not want to be responsible for the care and upbringing of his daughter, and he began to consider ways to get rid of her. When Agnes was just 2 weeks old, Bartlett supposedly suffocated her by pressing a cloth over her mouth and nose. Some sources do say other methods, but the majority state suffocation. He then disposed of her body in a nearby field. The murder of Agnes was discovered soon after, and Bartlett was arrested and charged with the crime. He was found guilty and sentenced to death. Bartlett's execution took place on the 13th of November 1882 at Bodmin Jail in Cornwall. He was hanged by William Marwood, a well-known hangman at the time, and his body was buried in quicklime within the stone yard at the prison. It is said that while he was awaiting execution, Bartlett's hair turned completely white, which is known as Marie Antoinette syndrome or canietis subita, is a rare condition that causes a person's hair to turn white or grey rapidly in response to extreme stress or fear. The case of William Bartlett and his daughter Agnes was widely reported in the press at the time and was seen as a tragic reminder of the harsh social stigma attached to having a child out of wedlock. The story has also been the subject of books and documentaries over the years. Overall, the story of William Bartlett and his daughter Agnes is a heartbreaking one, and it serves as a powerful reminder of the impact of social stigma and discrimination on people's lives. According to the stories, visitors and staff members have reported eerie occurrences and supernatural sightings related to Bartlett's ghost. Some have described seeing a ghostly figure wandering the halls of the prison, with its white hair and ghostly countenance striking fear in the hearts of those who have seen it. Others have reported hearing the sound of chains or footsteps, indicating a ghostly presence moving through the building. Some people say they get a very horrible feeling in the pit of their stomach right before seeing the apparition that is believed to be William Bartlett. One of the most intriguing tales involves a group of visitors who claimed to have seen the ghost of William Bartlett in one of the cells. The ghostly figure was said to be weeping and holding out its hands in a plea for help. The visitors were reportedly so spooked by the encounter that they left the cell feeling uneasy and frightened. If you would like to visit Bodmin Jail for yourself, I will put the link to their website in the description of this video, and as always, please remember to show respect to any locations with a dark past and to exercise caution when visiting. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and consider subscribing to my channel for more content like this. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload. And if you have any suggestions for future videos, please leave them in the comments below. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you in the next one.